All right, thank you so much for that. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. You know, India's spiritual destinations are undergoing a massive transformation. So we have our two esteemed guests joining us at this point. And as mentioned by our wonderful moderator, we will be welcoming another guest in just a few minutes. But wanted to begin with you, Mr. Lodha. You know, temple towns are increasingly attracting leading real estate developers, institutional investors, and hospitality brands as well. Is this a temporary boom or a long-term structural shift when we talk about India's real estate landscape?
Good afternoon, Aisha. Thanks to Hindustan Times and you for having us here.
Absolutely.
And my view on what you're saying is, instead of seeing them as temple towns, it's important to see them as cultural development centers. To give you an example, two of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, one of them is the Vatican City. And the Vatican City sees less than 10 million visitors a year. Ayodhya ji this year is going to see more than 250 million visitors. When that kind of population comes into a place, they tend to spend money. Economic growth takes place. The government is building infrastructure projects that come to life. The local economy starts participating in a much larger way. And all of this eventually leads to real estate boom. And what we must realize is these are smaller towns compared to what we are used to. They are finite in terms of the land masses. So the moment land becomes more and more attractive, lesser and lesser people are available to sell the land. So all in all, the economic boom in most of these places in our mind is just beginning to start now. And you'll see a tremendous value multiplication sitting where you are today. So definitely this is not temporary by any form of imagination. It's long-term sustainable economic value creation, which will lead to real estate price escalation.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting tidbit right there. Mr. Magazine, coming to you next. What do you think are the key factors when we talk about transforming cities such as Ayodhya, Varanasi, Ujjain, Puri, and Vrindavana into major real estate destinations?
First of all, you know, what interesting is what people don't realize, 40 to 50% of the domestic travel in India is religious travel.
Wow.
I was talking to a friend of mine and said, look, we don't realize when we are sitting in Delhi, sitting in this hall, you think people are going to Thailand and London for holidays, which is, of course, happening. But 40 to 50% domestic travel is religious travel. Now, this is, you mentioned Ujjain, there's Varanasi, there's Ayodhya, to Amritsar, and to many others we've not been aware of, South India. You know. So there's a massive domestic travel which has been happening for a long time. What has changed is that connectivity has improved, infrastructure has improved, people have more disposable income, and when your question was, is it temporary? No, it's only going to increase. The reason is that now the infrastructure is better, facilities are better. What everybody expects is that if they're going even for a religious tourism, they want a proper hotel, they want all the facilities, connectivity, get there. Unlike in the past, and the mindset is changing. In the past, the mindset is that if you're going for a religious destination, then you have to go through pain and to go there. You have to really suffer to get there. That's not happening. The younger generation would not do it. Even the Gen Z is not, millennials are not doing it. They want to go in a proper train, proper flight, proper road, want to stay in a proper hotel and have that religious experience. So it is here to stay. And if you look at the global cities, you mentioned Vatican. In fact, interestingly, Vatican, they said, I was trying to Google and find out how many tourists go to Vatican. So they said, are you asking about the museum or are you asking about the Vatican, what do you call the thing? So it's like 10, 12 million people going to the museum alone, which is the highest footfall, another 10, 12 million going to the Vatican itself. And if you look at Tirupati, I think the number is very large, 25 to 30 million. And you've given the numbers for Mecca is another one. Interesting, one other destination we don't think of is Kyoto in Japan, which is not religious, it's more cultural destination, but it's got hundreds of what you call Shinto and Buddhist monasteries. 10 million international tourists go there. And this is also, like I would say, as a benchmark for India. But 40 million domestic Japanese go to Kyoto. So again, to answer your question, you know, on the domestic travel. So there are 50 million people going every year to Kyoto, out of which 40 million are domestic. And that's what's going to happen in India, I feel, going forward, that we will see more non-residents and some foreigners coming to the religious destinations, but the domestic number will be always large.
You know, I'm curious, and I want to open up this next question for both of you here. Considering you were just talking about, you know, how one of the major issues seems to be connectivity. What do you think are the major obstacles when it comes to faith-led real estate? When we talk about development, what are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles that you can see? Because it's only going to increase, as you mentioned.
I'll actually request, I can answer that question, which I will, but
Okay.
he's one of the few people in India who's actually done a development in a religious location, and that to the scale. So and
Please.
he has,
Yes.
he's got his own, what do you call it, experience doing it, because he has actually implemented, and I'll add to it.
Thanks, Anshuman. I think to answer this question, we need to go back roughly 15 years in history
Okay.
and realize that for a very, very long time, most of the cultural tourism spots were seen aligned to one faith. Right? And they were not seen as secular spots. They were not seen as spots which are seeing development. They were seen purely from an angle of religiousness. And connectivity, etc., got very, very broken up. It was based on the particular state having a particular kind of government with a particular bent of mind, because it was all getting driven by believing whether it is working for one faith or the other faith. Over the last 10 to 12 years, it has substantially changed. And I think the current place where the state and the central government are aligned, people are looking this as an economic development boom. It's no longer about any particular faith. It's about the fact that these places are like what Anshuman said about Kyoto. They are going to become the standout destinations for the youth of the country to go to understand the history of India. And India is becoming more and more proud of what its history has been now, more than probably it has been at any point of time since its independence. So the largest barrier, which was the lack of the desire of the government to invest in these places, because they were not aligned with economic boom, and they were not aligned with the history of India. I think that's been totally taken away in the last 10 to 12 years. And which is why you'll see places like Ayodhya Ji, Vrindavan, Banaras, Puri, Amritsar, you name it. All of these places have substantially jumped up in their investment commitments and the kind of money actually flowing there. To give you some numbers, in 2021, the GDP of Ayodhya as a percentage of the UP economy was less than 0.1%. And the UP economic GDP itself was quite small overall as compared to the overall Indian economic GDP. That number is expected to touch to 3%.
Okay.
And the UP GDP is going to multiply 3.5 times in these 10 years.
Wow.
And that's what you're seeing, 85,000 crore rupees of projects physically under development around a place like Ayodhya Ji. Means a small hamlet is going to become a major town at some point of time.
Yeah, the challenge is, of course, always our infrastructure, but which the government lately has, like he rightly said, we got highways now, so
Yes.
connectivity is better. We still have to improve on accommodation, the hotels. But the fact also is, what we should realize is that demand brings in supply, right? So as the people have more disposable income, as is demand, so will the supply improve, right? So in the past, like I was mentioning, if you're doing a religious, first of all, in India, our country, I don't think most people even thought about tourism as such, because we were still a relatively poor country. There are other priorities. But now, as the GDP increases, as there is more prosperity, there will be more disposable income, and that includes not only general tourism, but also for the religious places. And I think as that demand improves, the supply side of all that infrastructure, which is the challenge, will improve. Be it hotels, be it food. Again, if someone is going to Ayodhya or Amritsar, it's not only for religious purposes, of course that is. It's also people, food is a big one,
Yes.
at least I would say in Amritsar. I went there, the food is there. So it's leisure come religious travel, and it has a multiplier impact on that city. As you know, we talk about employment. Just like he said, the whole smart city concept which came in some years back, that has also helped, because it's smart cities have not, I'm not sure where it has achieved all its goals, but whatever it has done, it has brought a difference. So yeah, so this is is here to stay. Infrastructure will remain the challenge, but it's improving, it's getting there.
All right. Thank you to the both of you for those responses.
Just to add
Please
to what
continue.
Anshuman is
Yes.
saying. If you look at around the Vatican,
Yes.
right, if you go to Rome and around the Vatican area, you got more than 48,000 hotel rooms, which are effectively sold out 90% of the time in peak season. And the visitors they attract is less than 20 million, 10 million a year is what Anshuman said. Now you go to Ayodhya ji, you're getting 25 times that scale already with less than 3,000 hotel rooms in place. It basically means just like everything else caught up in India, this kind of boom is going to catch up. And if you're going to build 15, 20,000 hotel rooms in a place, the kind of land value creation, the kind of job creation, the kind of skilled labor required is something which we will have to see to experience and believe.
Okay, thank you so much for those responses. Mr. Kapoor, wanted to come to you for the next question. How critical do you think government investments in roads, airports, and this is something we've been discussing to an extent, so just bouncing off of that, but railways, riverfront redevelopment, and civic infrastructure has been in accelerating this trend?
Hello, hi. Yes, hi, apologies for being late. I was coming from Guwahati, Kamakhya Devi Temple.
Okay.
So Ambubachi festival was happening for the past 6 days. It is one of the most auspicious locations in the country and on the planet. So 1 lakh people every day come there to visit. It is like the Vaishno Mata of that region.
Absolutely.
And, our country is a faith-based economy. Whenever we excel in something, whenever somebody has achieved some heights, they always say it was not me. If you talk to them in interview, it was like some other power, whoever they believe in. They always say, if you notice, it was someone else doing it. Maybe their guru, Devi Ma, Shivji, or some higher universal force. So people turn to faith in their heights. In their lows, when people are at their lowest point, again, they turn to faith. They go to pray or they meditate, they do breathing techniques. I'm also a teacher with the art of living. I usually introduce myself. I'm a real estate developer by profession and an art of living teacher by passion. It's sort of a calling of mine. So our country, our economy, entire India is based on faith-led economy. So it is absolutely imperative that the government focuses on it. And actually, we all know government already focuses on it in other industries, so to speak. But logistics, roadways, airports, river bodies. Rivers are considered Mars, Ganga Maiya. So even, the land has a deity of its own. If you go into a little bit of spirituality, they call it Sthal Devta. Yeah. So our entire country, there are some Upanishads, some texts which you read that they say that there's an entire hierarchy in the invisible as well, right? We feel that only one person is reflected here, how the movie is built for 2-3 years and just we see it in 2 hours. So one person is just reflected here and everything else works in the ethereal. And that we experience during our professional lives, personal lives, where a lot of things are not directly related to logic. Sometimes our 10% effort bears 100% of results, and sometimes it's vice versa. So it is very important for the government to give that kind of facilitation to our entire economy, to the people of India, so that they can land there safely, they can reach there through railways, there are proper roads, amenities, facilities. Because when a person is traveling to such sites, they have a faith and devotion in their heart. So it's like travel mixed with bhakti is called like Tirath Yatra, right? Or food mixed with bhakti or faith is suddenly turned into prasad. End of the day, scientifically speaking, our whole biochemistry changes. That sense of reverence, honor, it comes. So when people are traveling to such locations, either to visit, either to enjoy their holiday with family, or to find their second home or their retirement plan, then they have that sense of purity, reverence, devotion in their heart. So during that process, it is very spiritual for them also, not just practical, not just investment oriented. So it's more important for the government to build facilities around it so that they are not disturbed during the process. They can achieve their desired result. They can achieve their desired goal with their life when they are buying real estate or they are traveling to some place, yeah, in a hassle-free manner. And then, as they say, when you do good deeds to somebody, it comes back to you. So, lot of जब भी आप किसी की सेवा करते हैं या जाने अनजाने में, like real estate is part of, or governance is seva. I always say, right? It's service in its purest form, right? You're helping people achieve their dreams, get their homes, or give them relief. Many stuck projects are these days there. So a sense of blessing also comes to the people who develop that kind of infrastructure. So when the government is focusing on such facilities, then the government also gets that sense of blessing, right? And you see, whenever you're doing good deeds, your progress increases, your efficiency increases. And obviously, no good deeds can also happen without any economic value.
On a lighter note, he's
Yes.
saying our country's faith-based.
Yes.
In a country like ours, on all the challenges, we do definitely need a lot of faith. It's not easy to live in our country. So yeah, it is faith-based. We are here because we've got faith. Otherwise, it's not
Yes.
easy to survive in our country. But just one of the interesting things is that, what's going to develop is, healthcare.
Okay.
Because as you would see going forward, that it's already happening, it's going to increase where retirement homes will come in these places, right? So a lot of people at the older age want to, go live in. It's already happening. I know some people, their parents are living in Haridwar, other places, because they just want to live a peaceful life. But it was only happening for, a certain section of the people and not as more people who really realize that, look, if the older people have to live there, then you need healthcare facilities. You need the basic comforts, right? So I foresee that's also happening. There'll be more retirement homes coming in this place, which will also help in healthcare facilities coming
Okay.
in, which you need anyways, because the number of people going, you anyways need healthcare facilities, because with the number of people going to these places, there's bound to, you need to give that healthcare support. And I'm sure in your development area that is already happening. And in next 5 to 10 years, this is really, and like I mentioned, as the people become more prosperous, when they have disposable income, there will be a big shift. And as the infrastructure improves in these places, I couldn't believe earlier people were saying, oh, there will be people leaving. Normally, for retirement, you think of Goa or you think of the hills.
Yes.
But there will be large number of people going to these religious places, especially when the infrastructure, especially the healthcare, and it's easier to live there. And, where that ecosystem is there, where you can live a comfortable life. I think there'll be a big section. I don't know, I'm sure you've seen that too.
No, Ashwin, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think the fact that these places are now going to become very comfortable to live in, very accessible, have great government focus, and are seeing world-class healthcare facilities getting built, means that with a population where the young generation may not always be there with the older generation, and faith remains an essential part of Indian life, there will be a lot of senior citizen living happening in places like this, which will be fully thought through and supported. And it will actually become a virtuous cycle, because the more and more these communities get built, the more and more these communities will attract similar communities to get built. Because you need a critical mass for senior citizen living to take off.
Okay.
And if you go to Vrindavan, Mathura today, there will be a lot of Agarwal and Maheshwari families where after the age of 60, 65, a lot of people say that now I want to give the remainder of my life to Krishna Bhakti. And they're actually built very nice apartments, very nice villas for themselves. They stay there 9 months in a year and spend all the time in that, because that's actually, if you look at the way our Vedas are also teach us, after a certain age you're supposed to live a part of your life only for spirituality. So as India that way is a unique nation where, as we're becoming economically more prosperous, we are also beginning to understand our own culture, our own ethos, our own religion far better. And we are actually going back to the older way of doing things. You know, not linked to this, but a very nice way is what, earlier in most of the places we would be told not to eat in the night, which is now coming back in the form of intermittent fasting in modern science. So a lot of our old religious cultural beliefs based in science are now getting more and more accepted, which will see these kind of trends taking off in a very, very big way. And I think senior citizen living becoming a reality in cultural tourism places is bound to happen in the near future.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the premiumization story as well, we are essentially seeing a shift from standalone plots and budget accommodation to gated communities, branded residences, and integrated townships as well. Mr. Magazine, what do you think is driving this premiumization?
Simple, if you look at our economy, the way it is developing, one end, India, where our challenge is our per capita income as the average is still low. It's not where it should be. But if you look at different states, the per capita income has really gone up. And all of, like I mentioned earlier, people want, even if they go into a religious place, you have to still think of safety,
Yes.
right, and comfort. And the gated communities and better facilities, you want that wherever you're living, what were luxuries for us in India are essentials, be it air conditioning, proper roads, good healthcare facilities, basic facilities to do shopping. They're not luxuries anymore, right? And this whole premium thing is happening because people have the ability to pay, and they're demanding services. And things like safety is given. You can't, everybody, even if they go to a religious place, you want to be in a safe location. So
Yes.
the gated communities will be there. And it's not only for safety, but all the management of the facilities become really important, right? So you don't want to be, you want to live in a place which is safe and everything is happening. Because imagine, you are retiring or it is your second home and you're staying there for 3 months a year or 6 months of a year. You don't have to worry about living in a place where you have a power issue or you have some basic issue on maintenance. So as this is only going to increase as people are able to pay for it, and as there is demand, the cost will also come down, because
Okay.
end of this whole premium is happening also because it is expensive to provide those services, but this will become essential like anywhere else in the world, that if you're living in a gated community, besides safety, all your basics have met, and you can actually either retire or enjoy as at a second home in a peaceful manner what you want, and without any stress of managing or stress of facing problems of power outages, whatever the basics we face in some other cities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Mr. Lutha, I want to come to you next. High-profile celebrity purchases in Ayodhya have drawn significant attention. How much do you think that these buyers influence market sentiment and investor confidence in these destinations?
So I'll start off by giving you an example of what happened at our development, the Saryu in Ayodhya.
Okay.
I was on a family holiday sometime in 2023, December in Australia. And in the middle of the night, I got a missed call on my phone. And there was missed call 1, missed call 2, missed call 3. I didn't know the number, so I didn't pick up. It was 3 a.m. in the night in Australia. Then I get a message. And the message says, Abhinandan ji, this is Amitabh Bachchan. Please call back when convenient.
Wow.
I was going to say, it must be Amitabh Bachchan.
I stood up on the bed, it's Amitabh Bachchan. And I called him back, and the humility of the man. I called him and he said, Abhinandan ji, मैं Uttar Pradesh का निवासी हूँ. He's born in UP. He spent his initial years in Allahabad. And मुझे अयोध्या जी में अपनी ज़मीन खरीदनी है. आपके लोग खरीदने नहीं दे रहे. तो ऐसे साहब आपको इतना बोलने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. आपने कॉल कर दिया उतना बहुत है. You tell me what you want to take and it will be done. We're not open bookings, but there's no this thing for you. So then he said, Ashish, quite, it shows the mindset and the drive. नहीं आप पहले मुझे दाम बताइए. तो I said, साहब आपको क्या दाम बताएं आप अमिताभ बच्चन? नहीं आप मुझे दाम बताइए. तो he said मुझे 3 प्लॉट लेने हैं, मेरे लिए, एक बिटिया के लिए और एक अभिषेक के लिए. 15,000 फुट लेना है, मुझे दाम बताइए. तो I said, साहब will probably cost 15-16 crores for normal people, but doesn't matter for you. Your name is enough.
Yes.
He just put down the phone.
Okay.
Next day morning, by the time I got up and got ready, He'd wired that 15 crore rupees into my account.
Wow.
He didn't ask anything. And the reason I'm giving you this example is these are not celebrity purchases. These are people who've done extremely well in life and established themselves, who are now beginning to say, no, I want to be a part of this story because this is emerging India.
Yes.
And I want to be a role model for the story because it's emerging India. I want to tell everybody in India, you're thinking of buying a house in Dubai or you're thinking of buying a house in London, it's great. But have you first thought about going and buying a house in an Ayodhya Ji or a Puri or some such place where you're actually going to be a part of a great economic boom? But you're also going to be the initial first mover who's going to get other people to participate, because you always need that to happen.
Yes.
And we've seen that again and again. We recently had Ranbir buying at Saryu again. And all of these people are quite clear. They are not buying this because they are celebrities. They've done very well in life. They understand real estate extremely well. They probably have houses all over the world. But they are saying we understand economic value plus our ability to create a difference is the maximum in places like this, because we are going to change the way people perceive and think about these parts of India. And that's what they're really doing.
All right. That's a very interesting story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Mr. Kapoor, do you have any comments to add before we wrap up the session?
So, we're so connected in this time. We all have the latest technology, yet we are so disconnected. So community-based living, community is the flex now. Yeah. And pharmaceutical has become passé. It's become nutraceuticals. Yeah. So wellness smart cities. In DMA Infra, we are planning wellness smart cities. And obviously, one of the inspiration is my dear friend Abhinandan here, obviously, who's led the fold. But places where our ancient wisdom, Ayurveda, Panchkarma, Nadi Pariksha, Gaushala, organic farming, all the ancient technology that we have in our country coming together among the best ecological hotspots, some are hour and a half away from the city, where there is everything related to Indian and global wellness. So wellness tourism is also huge. So it's all about prevention now more than cure. I mean, yoga was a taboo 20, 30 years ago, meditation, all of that. But now, all your wellness centers, your wellness facilities integrated in the compound, in the space, in the township or the city, with nature, where senior citizens, yes, but along with children, along with teenagers. So, a family, their parents remain in their gaon, in their village, and the children, they come to the main cities, and then their children, they go and study abroad. So now such communities are to be built. And in ancient times, Jain community has such philosophy. They build a temple and then they build a community around it. So it is already there. Dachas in Russia, or there are cities in Japan where there are community cities. So again, and these projects are becoming a reality now. People want to live with them. So their second home, or they'll go as a community and live there with their friends, family, everybody reconnecting there. So reconnect cities of sorts. We're working on this concept.
Absolutely.
And net zero or net positive projects, freshwater lakes, solar energy, wind energy. So off-grid, where the electricity is being generated.
Got it.
There's so much technology. So again, I think faith-based real estate is, in another term, wellness-based real estate. So wellness-based real estate and faith-based real estate is here to stay, grow, and become a reality. And we're all part of that new age journey that India has taken up. And wherever there is wellness, there is faith, there is good governance and government facilities, there is bound to be 5x, 10x, 20x growth, much faster than any other area in the country or in the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us
you.
and talking to us about this very interesting, very important topic.